I noticed the way Gabriel looked at me the first week we met. I just chose to ignore it. Not because it was subtle, it wasn't. And not because I wasn't sure it was actually pretty obvious if you paid attention. But that was the thing. I made sure not to. Because once you acknowledge something like that, it stops being harmless. My name's Max. I'm 24, living alone for the first time, trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing with my life like everyone else. New apartment, new routine, new gym. That's where Gabriel came in. I didn't notice him right away. Not like that. At first, he was just another guy who showed up late, around the same time as me. Always alone. Always focused. The kind of guy who didn't waste time talking or scrolling on his phone between sets. But then I started noticing a pattern. Every time I looked up, he was already looking at me. The first time it happened, I brushed it off. Coincidence. The second time, I told myself I was imagining things. By the third time, I knew. Still, I didn't react. I'd glance past him like I didn't see anything. Adjust my grip, check my phone, whatever it took to keep it normal. To keep it safe. Because the truth is, I liked it. That quiet attention. The way it felt like I was being watched, not in a creepy way, but in a focused way. Intentional. And that was exactly why I couldn't acknowledge it. It would change things. And I wasn't ready for that. Gabriel wasn't hard to look at either. Tall, broad shoulders, dark hair that always looked slightly messy, like he didn't try too hard, but still got it right. There was something calm about him. Controlled. Except for his eyes. Those gave him away. They lingered. Not just on me. Either. I noticed how he moved, how he observed people in general. But with me, it was different. Longer. Heavier. Like he was trying to figure something out. Or maybe deciding something. One night, I caught him off guard. Or at least, I think I did. I had just finished a set and looked up faster than usual, and there he was, already watching me again. But this time, he didn't look away. Neither did I. For a second, everything just paused. No music. No movement. Just that silent moment stretched between us. Then I broke it. Not with words. I just turned away, like it didn't mean anything. Like I didn't feel my chest tighten slightly. Like I didn't just confirm everything I'd been pretending not to see. That's how it went for a while. A quiet game. He'd look. I'd pretend not to notice. And somehow, that made it worse. Because the tension didn't go away, it built. Every night, a little more. Every glance, a little longer. Every moment, a little harder to ignore. We started talking eventually. Nothing big at first. Just small things. You using this? How many sets left? Busy tonight? Normal. Casual. But even then, it wasn't normal. There was always something underneath it. Something neither of us said. Something we both knew was there. And I kept doing it. Pretending. Like I didn't notice the way his voice dropped slightly when he talked to me. Like I didn't notice how close he stood sometimes. Like I didn't notice the pauses, those small gaps where it felt like one of us should say something else, but didn't. I think he realized what I was doing before I did. That I wasn't clueless. That I was choosing this. Choosing not to react. Choosing to let it sit there between us, unresolved. And I think it started to get to him. Because one night, he stopped playing along. The gym was almost empty. Late. Quiet. I was at the bench, halfway through my workout, when I felt it again, that familiar weight of his attention. I didn't look up right away. I already knew. But then I heard his footsteps. Closer than usual. Too close. You always ignore people like that? He asked. I paused mid-rep, setting the bar back slowly. What? I said, like I genuinely didn't understand. He let out a quiet breath. Not annoyed. Just controlled. Nothing, he said. Just noticed you don't really look at people. That wasn't true. I looked at him all the time. Just not when he was looking at me. I grabbed my water bottle, taking a sip to buy time. Maybe I don't have a reason to, I said casually. There was a short silence. Then, maybe you do. I looked at him then. Really looked. And for the first time, it didn't feel like a game anymore. It felt like a line. And I wasn't sure how much longer I could pretend I didn't see it. I shouldn't have looked at him like that. That was the moment everything shifted. Because up until then, I had control. I could pretend. I could act like I didn't notice, like none of it meant anything. But the second I actually met his eyes, really met them, it stopped being one-sided. And Gabriel knew it. There was something in the way his expression changed. Not dramatic. Just sharper. Like he'd been waiting for that exact moment. You do that a lot, he said quietly. I frowned slightly. Do what? Act like you don't see things. There it was. Not subtle anymore. I let out a small breath, setting my bottle down slower than necessary. You're reading too much into it. Am I? His tone wasn't challenging. That's what made it worse. It was calm, certain, like he already knew the answer. I shrugged, turning slightly away again, reaching for a weight just to give myself something to do. It's just a gym, man. People look around. Yeah, he said. They do. A pause. Then, closer. But not like that. My grip tightened just a little. I didn't respond. Didn't look at him again either. I just focused on the movement, counting reps in my head like it would somehow drown out the fact that he was still standing there, still watching. And the silence between us? It wasn't empty anymore. It felt loaded. After I finished the set, I sat up, exhaling slowly. I could feel him right there, not moving, not leaving. Waiting. For what? I wasn't sure. Maybe for me to finally stop pretending. But I didn't. Instead, I stood up, grabbed my towel, and wiped my hands like everything was normal. Like he hadn't just called me out. Like my heartbeat wasn't just a little faster than it should be. You're overthinking it, I said finally. That was my move. My way out. Dismiss it. Keep it light. Go back to normal. Except it didn't work. Because Gabriel didn't back off. If anything, he stepped closer. Not enough to be obvious. Just enough that I noticed. That I had to notice. Then look at me, he said. I froze. Just for a second. What? Look at me, he repeated, quieter this time. And tell me I'm wrong. That hit harder than it should have. Because now it wasn't about him anymore. It was about me. About whether I was willing to admit it. I let out a short breath, shaking my head slightly like this was ridiculous. But my body didn't fully agree. Because even though I hesitated, I still turned. Slowly. And looked at him. Up close, it was worse. Or better. I still hadn't decided. His eyes didn't move. Not even a little. Locked on mine like he wasn't going anywhere this time. And suddenly, all those moments I'd been ignoring, they were right there. Every glance, every pause, every almost something. All of it real. See, I said, forcing a small, casual tone. Nothing. But it didn't sound convincing. Not even to me. Gabriel tilted his head slightly, studying me in a way that made my chest feel tight. You're still doing it, he said. Doing what? Acting. That word lingered. Too accurate. I swallowed, looking away first this time. And that's when I felt it. His hand. Not grabbing. Not stopping me. Just brushing lightly against my wrist. Barely there. But enough. Enough to make everything go quiet again. Max, he said. My name. The way he said it. Low. Steady. Like he'd been holding it back. I didn't pull away. That was my mistake. Or maybe my choice. I wasn't even sure anymore. You know I'm not imagining this, he continued. I could feel his eyes on me again, even without looking. And you know you're not either. I should have shut it down. Pulled my hand back. Said something normal. Something safe. But instead, I stayed still. And that silence between us, it finally broke. Because for the first time since all of this started, I didn't pretend I didn't notice anymore. I don't know how long we stood like that. Not touching. Not moving. Just aware. It felt stupid, honestly. We were in a public gym, not some private moment, not some hidden place where things like this were supposed to happen. But somehow, the rest of the world just faded. All I could focus on was the fact that I hadn't pulled my hand away. And Gabriel noticed. Of course he did. His fingers didn't tighten around my wrist, didn't try to hold me there. But they didn't move either. It was like he was giving me a choice. Stay or leave. And I stayed. You gonna keep pretending? He asked quietly. I exhaled through my nose, shaking my head a little like I was annoyed, like this was all unnecessary. You're making it into something bigger than it is. That's the thing, he said. I don't think I am. I finally looked at him again. Closer this time. No distance. No pretending I didn't see it. And yeah, it was there. That tension. That's something we'd been circling around for weeks. You don't even know me, I said. It came out more defensive than I meant. Gabriel didn't react to the tone. If anything, his expression softened slightly. I know enough, he said. Like what? A small pause. Then, the way you look at me when you think I won't notice. My chest tightened. I let out a short, almost disbelieving laugh. That's what you think is happening. I don't think, he said calmly. I know. There was no arrogance in it. No ego. Just certainty. And for some reason, that got to me more than anything else. Because he wasn't guessing. He was right. I pulled my hand back then. Not abruptly. Not like I was rejecting him. Just enough to create space again. I think you're bored, I said, grabbing my towel again just to have something to do. Late night, empty gym, nothing better to do than overanalyze random shit. It sounded decent. Convincing. Safe. But the second I finished talking, I knew it wasn't enough. Because Gabriel didn't buy it. He stepped back slightly this time, giving me space but not breaking eye contact. "All right," he said. Just that. No argument. No pushing. And somehow that was worse. Because now it felt like the pressure was on me. Like he'd said what he needed to say, and now he was waiting to see what I'd do. I turned away first. Again, that was becoming a pattern. I moved to the next machine, forcing myself back into my routine, counting reps, focusing on form, anything to ground myself again. But it didn't work. Not when I could feel him still there. Not when I knew he hadn't left. A few minutes passed. Maybe 5. Maybe less. Then I heard it. His voice, quieter now. Closer again. "You ever get tired of it?" I stopped mid-movement. "Of what?" "Acting like you don't feel something when you clearly do." There it was again. Direct. No way around it. I sat up slowly, running a hand through my hair, trying to buy myself a second to think. But honestly, I didn't have a good answer. Because the truth was, yeah, I was tired of it. Tired of pretending. Tired of overthinking every glance, every word, every small moment between us. But admitting that? That meant stepping into something real. And real meant risk. "I don't know what you want me to say," I muttered. Gabriel didn't hesitate. "Nothing," he said. "Just stop pretending." Silence. Heavy. Still. I looked at him again. And this time, I didn't look away right away. "You always this straightforward?" I asked. A small smirk touched his lips. "Only when it matters." "And this matters?" Another pause. Short, but loaded. "Yeah," he said. Simple. No hesitation. And that hit differently. Because suddenly it wasn't just tension anymore. It wasn't just curiosity or attraction or whatever this had been building into. It was something intentional. Something he was choosing. And now, I had to decide if I was going to keep pretending I didn't see it. Or finally admit that I did. I let out a slow breath. Then, "What if I don't stop?" I asked quietly. Gabriel's eyes didn't leave mine. "Then I will. Then I will." That should have sounded like a threat. But it didn't. It sounded like a promise. And for some reason, that made my stomach tighten. I held his gaze a second longer than I meant to. Just enough to feel it, that shift. That moment where things stop being theoretical and start becoming real. Then I broke it. Again. I looked away first, letting out a quiet breath like I was trying to shake it off. "You're really that sure, huh?" I muttered. I wouldn't say it if I wasn't. Of course he wouldn't. That was the thing about Gabriel. He didn't waste words. Everything he said felt deliberate. Measured. Which made it a lot harder to ignore. I grabbed my water bottle, taking a longer sip this time, mostly just to give myself something to do. My thoughts were moving too fast, trying to catch up with what was happening. Because this wasn't just glances anymore. This wasn't just tension. This was direction. And I wasn't sure if I liked how easily he was pulling me into it. "You do this with everyone?" I asked, glancing at him from the side. "No." Too quick. Too certain. That answer landed somewhere deeper than I expected. I frowned slightly. "So what? I'm special now." Gabriel didn't react right away. He just looked at me. Really looked. And yeah, that was a mistake. Asking that. Because the way his expression shifted, it wasn't teasing. It wasn't light. It was honest. "I noticed you first," he said. My chest tightened again. That wasn't what I expected. Not some smooth line. Not something casual. Just that. Simple. Direct. And way too real. I let out a short breath, shaking my head slightly like I was brushing it off. "Yeah? And what exactly did you notice?" He stepped a little closer again. Not enough to trap me. Just enough to make it impossible to ignore him. "The way you look like you don't want to be noticed," he said. A pause. "While making it obvious that you do." I scoffed quietly, but it came out weaker than I intended. "You're really into analyzing people, huh?" "Just you." There it was again. That same calm certainty. And I hated how much it got to me. Because part of me wanted to push back. Shut it down. Turn this into something casual again. But the other part didn't. The other part was curious. Too curious. "Let's say you're right," I said slowly, crossing my arms like I was still in control of this. "What then?" Gabriel didn't hesitate. "Then stop wasting time." The way he said it. Low. Steady. Like he'd already decided something. And I was just catching up. "And do what?" I asked. This time, he took a second. Not long. But enough to feel intentional. "Then, stop pretending you don't feel it." My jaw tightened slightly. There it was again. That word. Feel. He kept bringing it back to that. And the problem was, he wasn't wrong. I just didn't like hearing it out loud. Or what? I pressed. I don't even know why I said that. Maybe I wanted to see how far he'd go. Maybe I wanted him to push. Maybe I just needed an excuse to react. Gabriel stepped closer again. This time, closer than before. Close enough that I could feel the shift in the air. The space between us tightening, heavy with everything we hadn't said. Or I will, he said quietly. My breath caught for a second. What does that mean? He didn't answer right away. And that silence? That was worse than anything he could have said, because now my mind was filling in the blanks. Then, his hand moved again. Not sudden, not forceful, just deliberate. His fingers brushed against mine first. Testing, waiting, like before. But this time, he didn't stop there. He held it, lightly, but enough. Enough to make it real. My body tensed slightly, not pulling away, but not fully relaxing either. And he noticed. Of course he did. You still gonna act like this doesn't mean anything? He asked quietly. I swallowed. Because now it was different. Before, I could pretend. Before, it was just looks. Words. Space. But this was contact. This was choice. And I was still standing there. Not moving. Not stopping him. You're really not giving me an easy way out, are you? I muttered. Gabriel's grip didn't tighten. But it didn't loosen either. No, he said. And then, just slightly, he leaned in. Not enough to touch. Just enough that I could feel it. That pull. That line I'd been avoiding this entire time. Right in front of me now. And for the first time, I didn't know if I wanted to step back or cross it. I should have stepped back. That's the first thing that hit me. Not desire. Not confusion. Just that clear, logical thought. This is where you stop. Because everything up until now, it was safe. Looks. Words. Tension you could deny if you really wanted to. But this was different. Gabriel was close enough now that I could feel the heat coming off him. Not touching, but not far either. That kind of distance where even breathing feels louder than it should. And my hand was still in his. That was the part one couldn't ignore anymore. You always this patient? I asked quietly. It came out more controlled than I felt. Gabriel's thumb shifted slightly against my fingers, not a full movement. Just enough to remind me he was there. Only when I think it's worth it, he said. That did something to me. I didn't show it, but I felt it. Because there was no hesitation in him. No second guessing. He wasn't testing the waters anymore. He was already in. And I was still standing at the edge, pretending I hadn't made a decision yet. I let out a slow breath, glancing down briefly at where our hands were. Still there. Still connected. Still a choice I hadn't undone. You don't even know what this is, I said. Gabriel didn't move. I know what it feels like. I looked back up at him. And what does it feel like? A pause. Then, quieter. Like you've been waiting just as long as I have. That hit harder than anything else he'd said. Because it wasn't about him anymore. It was about me. And the worst part? He was right. I had been waiting. Not consciously. Not in some obvious way. But every time I chose not to look at him, I was still aware of him. Every time I ignored it, I was still feeling it. And now, there was no space left to hide behind. I slowly pulled my hand out of his. Not sharply. Not like rejection. Just enough. Enough to breathe again. Enough to think. Gabriel didn't stop me. But he didn't step back either. He stayed right there, watching me like he already knew what I was about to do. And that annoyed me more than it should have. You always think you've got people figured out. I asked, a little sharper this time. No, he said calmly. Just you. I exhaled, running a hand through my hair, pacing half a step away before stopping. This was getting out of control. Too fast. Too real. And the thing is, I wasn't scared of him. I was scared of how easily I was slipping into this. How do you know I'm not just bored? I said. Or curious. Or just playing along. Gabriel tilted his head slightly, then stepped forward again, closing that space I just created. You're not that kind of person, he said. You don't know that. I do. I let out a short, frustrated breath. Yeah? How? Another pause. But this one felt different. More intentional. Because if you were just playing, he said quietly, you would have walked away already. Silence. And yeah, that landed. Because he was right again. I could have walked away. At any point. Weeks ago. Minutes ago. Even now. But I didn't. And we both knew it. I looked at him. Really looked this time, not avoiding, not pretending. Just honest. You don't make this easy, I said. A faint smile touched his lips. I'm not trying to. Of course he wasn't. That would have been too simple. I shook my head slightly, but there was no real resistance left in it. Not anymore. Because somewhere between all those ignored glances and this moment, Something shifted, and I couldn't pretend I didn't feel it anymore. You're right about one thing, I said quietly. Gabriel's eyes stayed on mine. Yeah. I hesitated, just for a second. Then, I didn't walk away. Another pause. Heavy, but not tense anymore. Just real. Gabriel took a small step closer. Not pushing this time, just meeting me where I was. And you're still here? He said. I didn't answer. Didn't need to. Because this time, I didn't look away. There's a moment, right before something happens. Not the obvious kind. Not loud or dramatic. It's quiet. Almost unnoticeable if you're not paying attention. But everything slows down just enough for you to realize. This is it. That's where I was standing. Right there. Looking at Gabriel and not looking away. And for the first time since all of this started, I wasn't trying to control it anymore. I wasn't pretending. I wasn't deflecting. I was just there. So what now? I asked. My voice was lower than usual. Not nervous. Just real. Gabriel didn't answer right away. He watched me for a second like he was making sure I wasn't going to pull back again. Then he stepped closer. Slow. Deliberate. Giving me time to react. To stop him. I didn't. That was my answer. His hand came up again, but this time, not to test anything. Not to hover. It rested lightly against my side. Firm enough to feel. Careful enough to stop if I wanted. My breath hitched slightly. And yeah, he noticed that too. You're still thinking, he said quietly. I let out a small breath. Yeah. Stop. I almost laughed at that. That's not how that works. It is right now. His voice dropped just a little. And something about the way he said it, it wasn't demanding. It was grounding. Like he was pulling me out of my own head. And honestly, I needed that. Because if I kept thinking, I'd walk away. And I didn't want to. Not anymore. So instead, I stayed. His hand shifted slightly against my side, fingers pressing just a little more, pulling me a fraction closer. Not enough to force anything. Just enough to close that last bit of distance. And suddenly, we were there. No space. No pretending. No excuses left. I could feel his breath now. Warm. Steady. Too close to ignore. You still gonna act like you didn't see this coming? He murmured. I shook my head slightly. No. That was it. That was the moment everything finally clicked into place. Because there was no hesitation left in me. No pretending. No stepping back. Just choice. And I made it. I leaned in first. Barely. Just enough to close the distance. And for a split second right before anything happened, I felt it. That same quiet moment. That pause. Where everything could still go either way. Then Gabriel moved. Not fast. Not rushed. Just certain. His hand shifted from my side to my waist, steadying me as he leaned in the rest of the way. And then, we crossed it. The tension, the looks, the weeks of pretending. All of it finally broke. Not in some explosive way. Not messy. Just real. Simple. Like it had been building toward this the whole time. And maybe it had. When we pulled back, it wasn't far. Still close. Still there. I exhaled slowly, my forehead almost brushing his. So much for pretending, I muttered. Gabriel let out a quiet breath, something almost like a smile in it. Yeah, he said. A pause. Then softer. Finally. And the crazy part? I didn't regret it. Not even a little. Because for the first time since all of this started, I stopped acting like I didn't notice. And just let myself feel it. I thought that would be it. That crossing the line would somehow release the tension. Like everything would settle after that. Go back to something normal. Defined. I was wrong. If anything, it made everything sharper. More real. Because now there was no pretending left. No space to hide behind casual conversations or quick glances. Whatever this was, it existed now. And we both knew it. I stepped back first this time. Not far. Just enough to breathe properly again. Gabriel didn't stop me. Didn't try to pull me back. But his eyes stayed on me. Different now. Not questioning. Not searching. Certain. That should have made things easier. It didn't. We should probably, I started, then stopped. I didn't even know how to finish that sentence. Go back to working out. Act normal. Pretend this didn't just happen. Yeah, that wasn't happening. Gabriel tilted his head slightly, watching me struggle through it. Probably what? He asked. I let out a short breath, shaking my head. I don't know, I admitted. And that was honest. For once, I didn't have a clean way to handle this. Didn't have a version of this that fit into something simple. Because this wasn't just a moment anymore. It felt like the start of something. And that was new. Gabriel stepped back slightly, finally giving me real space. Not distance, just enough so I didn't feel cornered. I'm not in a rush, he said. That caught me off guard. What? He shrugged lightly, like it wasn't a big deal. You think I waited this long just to mess it up in 5 minutes? There was something almost amused in his tone, but underneath it, something steady, grounded. And that did more to calm me down than anything else. Because I realized he wasn't pushing anymore. He didn't need to. That part was over. Now it was just real. I ran a hand over the back of my neck, glancing around the gym like I was suddenly aware of where we were again. Still public. Still normal. Except it didn't feel normal anymore. So what is this to you? I asked. The question slipped out before I could overthink it. Gabriel didn't answer immediately. Not because he didn't know, but because he was choosing his words. And that mattered. It's not random, he said finally. Simple. Clear. No hesitation. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I figured that. A small pause. Then, it's not for me either. That felt important. Saying it out loud. Admitting it. Gabriel's expression shifted slightly, not surprise, but something close to relief. Like he'd been waiting to hear that. Good, he said quietly. Another silence settled between us. But this one wasn't tense. It wasn't heavy. It was steady. Comfortable, even. Which was insane, considering what just happened. I huffed out a quiet breath, shaking my head slightly. You realize this is going to make things weird now, right? Gabriel's lips curved just a little. It already was. Fair. I couldn't even argue that. Because yeah, this had been weird for weeks. We just finally stopped pretending it wasn't. I looked at him again. Really looked. And for the first time, I wasn't trying to analyze every detail. Wasn't trying to figure out what he was thinking or what this meant long term. I just saw him. And it felt different. You're not going to disappear on me after this, right? I asked. I didn't mean for that to sound as serious as it did. But it did. Gabriel's expression softened slightly. No, he said. No hesitation. No over-explaining. Just that. And for some reason, I believed him. That's what surprised me the most. Not what happened. Not how easily it happened. But how natural it felt after. Like this wasn't something forced or impulsive. Like it had been building long before either of us said a word about it. I nodded slowly. Okay. That was it. Not some big agreement. Not some defined label. Just okay. And somehow that was enough. For now, I grabbed my towel, glancing back at the weights like I'd suddenly remembered why I came here in the first place. You still working out? I asked. Gabriel let out a quiet breath that almost sounded like a laugh. Yeah, he said. I guess we should. I smirked slightly, turning back toward my spot. Try to keep up. Not a chance, he replied. And just like that, we slipped back into something that looked normal, but felt completely different. Because now, I wasn't pretending anymore. And neither was he. Things didn't go back to normal after that. Not really. We still showed up at the same time. Still used the same machines. Still kept things quiet, low-key, like nothing obvious had changed. But everything had. It was in the way we moved around each other now. Closer. Easier. No hesitation. The first few days after, we didn't talk about it. Not directly. No what are we conversation. No overthinking. No awkward attempts to define something that didn't need a label yet. We just kept showing up. And somehow, that said enough. But the looks? Those didn't stop. If anything, they got worse. Because now I wasn't pretending not to notice. Now I met them. Held them. Let them linger. And Gabriel? Yeah, he didn't hold back anymore either. One night, about a week later, I got there earlier than usual. Empty gym. Quiet. That same late-night stillness I'd gotten used to. I was halfway through my workout when he walked in. And I felt it before I even saw him. That awareness. That pull. I looked up. And there he was. Same as always, but not really. Because now there was no question behind it. No guessing. Just recognition. He walked over without hesitation, dropping his bag near mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. You're early, he said. Could say the same to you. A small smirk. Maybe I wanted to catch you off guard. I raised an eyebrow. You think I didn't notice you the second you walked in? That earned a quiet exhale from him, almost a laugh. Yeah, I figured. A pause. Not awkward. Just charged. Different from before. Because now we didn't need to dance around it. I leaned back slightly against the bench, watching him. You still staring? I asked. He didn't even try to deny it. Yeah. That simple. That honest. And for some reason, that hit harder than all the tension from before. Because there was no game left. Just truth. I shook my head slightly, a small smile slipping through before I could stop it. You're unbelievable. Gabriel stepped closer, stopping right in front of me. Yeah, he said quietly. But you didn't walk away. There it was again. That reminder. That choice. And this time, I didn't even try to argue it. Instead, I stepped closer too. No hesitation. No pause. Just natural. Neither did you, I said. His gaze softened slightly, not weaker, just real. Wasn't planning to. A silence settled between us. But not the kind that needed filling. Just the kind you stay in. Because it feels right. I exhaled slowly, glancing down for a second before looking back up at him. You know what the funny part is? What? I shook my head slightly. All this time, I thought I was the one in control. Gabriel's lips curved just a little. You were, he said. I frowned slightly. Doesn't feel like it. That's because you stopped pretending. That landed. Quiet. Simple. True. And yeah, he was right. The control I thought I had, it was just distance. Avoidance. The moment I dropped that, everything changed. But not in a bad way. Just real. I let out a breath, nodding slightly. Yeah. Another pause. Then I looked at him again. Really looked. No filters. No second guessing. Just him. I'm glad I didn't, I said. Gabriel didn't answer right away. But the way he looked at me, that was enough. Because it said everything. And for the first time since all of this started, there was nothing left to ignore. No pretending. No missed moments. Just two people who saw each other and didn't look away.